Amazing. Okay, so welcome, Manage Protect partners and friends. We are here today talking about Copilot and really how we can go out there with Copilot whilst managing and mitigating the risk. I'm very privileged to be to share the stage here with Mr. Robert Crane, who I've known for I think a number of years now, actually. I'd say, Robert, I do remember the first time I think I heard you thundering into a room at an SMB IT Pro event in Sydney. I think was the first time that I met you, and ever since then, I've definitely very much respected your pragmatism and views and way of explaining things to small and medium businesses in a way that makes sense and is real to them. So feel very happy to have you here today, guiding us through this journey and
Appreciate
also running the slides.
appreciate that, Andrew. Hopefully, you don't hold me liable for any personal damage. So,
Oh, I'm sure there will be. There usually is when the two of us are in a room. But starting, I will say there's a little bit of hygiene. Now, what we're going to do, please feel free to put the questions through on the chat. We are going to try to keep. We've got a lot of material to cover, so we're going to try to keep to time today. So we're going to Claire and I will probably answer some of the chat questions where we can. Otherwise, we will bring them all together in the Q&A right at the end of the session, and we can discuss them in a bit more detail. The meeting's being recorded, as you probably heard. The slides will be shared, the meeting will be shared, so that probably reduces about a third of the questions. So thank you, Robert.
oh, okay. There's some more slides here for you, I think. So,
Yeah,
anyway, all
no,
right.
I was asking you just to click
Is that what?
because you've
That's
got
what the
control.
translate. Let me turn the translate. Let me turn the slide controller translation button on. Right there we go.
Okay. So what we're going to cover today is what Copilot readiness looks like. The AI journey has come upon us fairly quickly as managed service providers. As is often the case, it's being brought in many ways by our customers. Our customers are getting excited. A lot of the small to medium businesses who are get excited about technology, which is great, which is why we work with them, why they work with us. But they're dipping their toes into AI and they're using it, and they're using it in some cases well, in some cases poorly, but usually with not a lot of thought as to security risks and what issues there may actually be. And that's what we see a large part of our responsibility as working with MSPs and MSPs, helping you to really help them manage that risk. A little about us. Manage Protect. Look, we started in 2008. Yeah, thank you. Um, and it's funny. We've really the business has been focused on helping MSPs to a large degree deal with change. Going back over the last nearly 20 years, uh, we went through changes, moving people from on-prem to cloud. Went through and that was a big change for MSPs. MSPs would look at it and they'd be looking at their subscription models and the pricing, going, "Why are we doing this?" And in the end, we did it because it made sense for the customers. And ultimately, we've come to a place where the cloud is delivering the ability to do things as a small to medium business, which you just couldn't do previously before the cloud. We've helped businesses deal with cybersecurity risks. And today, in what we're seeing as the both the opportunity and the threats, we're helping our MSPs work with artificial intelligence. How do we introduce AI into small to medium businesses? How do we help our MSPs fill the gaps, both technical and also from a resource perspective, on delivering this well and competing, frankly, with bigger providers, with bigger MSPs as well. So, running an MSP is hard. We see our goal as working really closely with our MSP partners, truly partnering with them to try to make that easy, try to make cloud easy, try to make cybersecurity easy, try to make AI easy. Click. So, what does Copilot readiness look like for SMBs? And this is really the answer, the question that Rob's going to spend a bit of time answering today, but we could do this with an AI, couldn't we?
I thought that's what I was.
Are you a digital twin?
I can be. Cost extra.
That'll be the next webinar. Um, Copilot's ready in the building. Look, I think readiness isn't projects, table stakes. Basically, we are seeing across our entire MSP partner base, every month there's more and more Copilot licenses being deployed. There is Copilot as a standard inclusion in many of the stack. And overall, from an AI perspective, we're not only seeing Copilot out there, of course, we're seeing lots of other unmanaged shadow AI that is being brought about by the people who work in the businesses that we serve. But as an MSP, and we need to come to our customers and really give them a strategy, a plan on how we do this well and how we do this properly. Copilot's bundled in Dentsu 365 plans. Users will switch it on, of course, because they can. Ready means identity. It's funny. When I initially looked through this, it just all came through as one page. So I'm happy for you to just click through it, Rob. SMBs really have time to budget, and as we said, really uh, we see our position as how do we keep them safe? What can we put in place? What's a strategy that makes sense? What are the tools that we can utilize and make AI functional, beneficial, but a safe environment for our end customers to progress in? So, as an MSP, okay, so going back a year ago, I was over in Denver, Colorado. I was over at Beyond, which with David Bajau, who's also, yes, he's attending. Very good to see you, David. Nice to have somebody on this event to see me rather than Rob. Um, one of the things that was talked about over at Beyond was there was very much a sense of AI is here. All MSPs need to become MIPS, and if we don't do something immediately, the world will collapse. And I think as an MSP and as a business owner, definitely, I always feel like we're always going too slow, but at the same time, we're going too fast. And I think for our customers, basically, that's the same risk. They want AI productivity now, they don't want to fall behind their competitors, but at the same time, we need to work with them to make sure that basically that they don't create a compromise, create a situation whereby that can cause horrendous damage to their business potentially. And we know that this can happen. We've seen it happen in so many circumstances where deployment of AI has created opportunities for bad actors as well as accidental um, loss of data. So the win is the opportunity to help the partners. The challenge is, of course, around the discussion with the partners, which we spend a lot of time, with discussion with the customers. Um, and I think that's really the journey that we're working with here today.
Cool. I think it's demo time.
Thanks, Rob.
Cool. All right. So just to continue on what Andrew's mentioned here and get in the mood, this is what most customers will now see when they log into their Microsoft 365 environment. So the minute they log into the web version, they are going to be greeted, with this sort of environment. They're going to be encouraged to use AI out of the box, and then obviously you can add a license on top of this to get more features, functionality, and so on. But the idea is it's front and center, and the encouragement from Microsoft is going to be around, let's try and do the upsell to show the value of additional AI kind of capabilities. So inside the Microsoft environment, there are lots of different locations that you can start with to give you some idea, an overview, or a better understanding of how the client is using AI, what AI is included. Because remember, each Microsoft 365 tenant does include, the most basic Copilot version, which is grounded on the web. Then when they add a license, they also get the ability to have it grounded across their internal data as well. Now, I'd encourage you to look into Purview, so purview.microsoft.com. This is, again, available in all SKUs. Now, the capabilities inside Purview do vary depending on what license that you have, but we're kind of going to aim it at a business premium style environment to give you some basics here. So my advice to you would be, if you haven't gone into the Purview portal, go in there, have a look what is available. You can select the different solutions on the left-hand side here, so you'll see a various range of solutions that are available to you. I've gone into the DSPM, so Data Security Posture Management, and that incorporates the management or the posture of the internal and the external data used by AI and the users in the environment. So the starting point is probably going to be the posture dashboard here. So go in, have a look. This is information that is curated by Microsoft, already created and updated on a regular basis. So as you scroll down here, you'll see that you are given objectives, you're given potentially remediation plan, the details of the objective in more detail if you want. So there's a fair amount of overview information here. Now, if you go down the bottom here, you'll begin to see things like these posture trends to give you an idea of what the usage is and how sensitive information may have been interacted with. Now, you can generally change the settings in any of these graphics here to go in and suit your needs. Now, I'd also suggest that the objectives is probably where the biggest value is. You'll go in here and you'll see a level of granularity below the simple posture view. So we get an idea of our interactions with AI. Now, remember that we can have, or users can have, interactions with AI even if they aren't working across their own data. They can interact with data that's on the web, but also if we go back to our interface here, don't forget that a user can go in and they can upload content from different locations, and that will then be in Microsoft 365. They can also then attach any cloud files they have to ground the data manually in that. So even without a license, it is possible for a user to upload data into the prompt and then have that data utilized with AI and then also saved in OneDrive for Business. So that is, again, an interaction here. So you'll see that we can, again, break these out and look at more details on the objective. We can also begin to understand the oversharing of sensitive data. Now, the important thing to remember here is that in many cases, the customer has not really defined what is sensitive data. That is an opportunity and something that needs to be done, I think, in conjunction with an IT provider to help the customer understand, what's important, where is it stored, who has access to it. All that sort of thing is a conversation that's needed to be had. Generally, what you find is the data is not well structured. It's generally in one simple document library in a very deep folder structure, much like a file server. We need to potentially think about re-architecting the environment to make it, more AI friendly and to make it easier to manage. So again, that is a conversation to have with the customer. We've also got the desire here to prevent exfiltration of risky destinations. But again, part of this means defining what's a risky destination. Is that simply outside the tenant, or is that to Gmail accounts, or what? So we need to sit down and define this. The big difference between compliance, which is Microsoft's, Purview is Microsoft's word for compliance, and security is we generally need to put more consulting time in around compliance. We need to sit down and converse with the customer, understand their data, and create policies that are reflected in what the customer's desires are, which means we need to spend more time consulting with them. So as we go down here, you'll see unmonitored data sources. You'll also see sensitive data in the organization. But once again, we need to define what is sensitive data. And typically we have to put labels on it, which we will come to. So that is part of the capabilities included in Business Premium that you can take advantage of. So this is a really good starting point, gives you a nice overview, gives you a nice dashboard, something you can go and talk to the customer directly if you want. You'll also notice that we do get AI observability in here, more granular kind of as we move through these options. But from here, I then refer you to have a look in the admin console, admin.cloud.microsoft. In the Copilot option on the left-hand side, we open up Overview. It gives us a nice, again, dashboard overview of how AI or Copilot is being utilized inside the environment. You'll see here that we get a what's new, and we can drill into any of these by simply clicking on the links. It's a great starting point to get this overview feel. Now, I'd encourage you to go that one step deeper. Go back to the overview and go into the security option up the top here. So once again, if we're focusing on security, you'll notice here that it says that it's protected by Purview, which is the console we were in. And again, it's going to bring that into this admin style context. So we're going to be able to determine how to and what steps are involved in preventing data leaks. We're also going to get recommendations. We're also going to look at managing oversharing. So we can do all that from inside this environment, inside the admin area. And remember here that we do have, like I said, more details, and we can always jump from here kind of into Purview. So Microsoft's always got multiple ways and different granularities in different consoles, but the idea would be is they're summarizing it into the admin console under Copilot overview and also into the co-work option here as well, which gives you a little bit more detail there. I'd also encourage you to pop into Agents. So Agents is under co-work here. Again, overview page gives you more details. I think the important thing to focus on here is simply the number of agents that you do have. If you go into the All Agents option underneath this, you'll see that even for a small tenant, you can have potentially hundreds of agents. And agents are an identity. Agents are permissions. Agents are data usage. They could be autonomous. The question is going to be is how are they being managed, because they're very much like your traditional user in the environment. So that's kind of probably the biggest challenge going forward is managing this growth of agents, because a user can go in and create as many agents as they like. Even in a SKU which doesn't include a premium license of Microsoft 365 Copilot, they can go into agents here, and you'll see over here that they can go in and create a new agent. Now, the license kind of dictates what data they can get to, but remember, they could create an agent and upload corporate data into that agent. That is available in the included Copilot with Microsoft 365. And if you add a license, then natively it will work across the data. The question then is going to be, okay, how are we managing our agents? Are they doing the correct thing? Are they still valid? And are they compliant with the environment we've defined? So we're not going to manage our users and their interactions with AI. More and more so, it's going to move to how do we manage our users as well as the agents which those users kind of have created. All right, so the starting point I would suggest is go in, have a look at Purview DSPM. Right, is a great place to start. Look at the posture and the objectives there. Then pop into admin.cloud.microsoft. Look at the Copilot option and the agents option as well. I think they're probably the two best starting points for that. Now, once we've got a bit of an overview of our environment, the next question is, okay, where are the areas that we need to invest in to reduce the security gaps and to reduce the risk for our customers? I think it's very important to understand the stack here, right? Now, at the bottom of the stack, we have the user's data. This is SharePoint files, this is OneDrive files, emails, things like Loop notebooks, all these sort of things where they're stored inside the tenant in some sort of structure. Now, on top of that, we layer our security. So think initially things like SharePoint permissions, document library permissions, folder permissions, but think about control around mailboxes. Think about, control about all the different areas. So my question has always been is that at the bottom of every prompt that is run with Copilot these days, the user gets the option to create a page, right, to save that information or that prompt. That is a loop page that is saved inside Loop. Can you back up and restore Loop pages? So again, one day, customer's going to say, I created a Copilot page. I can't find it. Get it back for me. So again, understanding, where that is, how it's saved, protected, and again, managed in the environment, very important. But security is layered on top of our data. On top of that, then lies the compliance side of it. So think things like data loss prevention, things like data labeling, the policies that actually manage who and where the data can be sent. So security largely applies to the data when it is in a container. So think about the data in a SharePoint document library. The security are the permissions in around that document library for when the data resides in that container. But what happens if a user who does have access moves that data, copies that data, sends that data via email to a third party? That's where compliance kicks in. Are they allowed to do that? What barriers are they allowed to cross? So can they send that information outside the tenant, or is there a restriction in place that prevents, a user who does have access to the information to get their job done, but are prevented from sharing it with people outside the tenant who may not have that same level of permission? So, again, all of these compliance and security are designed and implemented using policy. Policy is something that IT providers are going to be creating in consultation with the customer. On top of that is layered search. So search is the technology that AI will largely use to get its most current information on the data inside a tenant. What that means is a quick and easy way for you to determine how secure information is, even before layering AI, is to simply run a simple, quick tenant search. So you can go into the search option inside Microsoft 365, and you can run a search for confidential or restricted information. So we pop back here, you'll see that under this option here on the left, we've got the ability to search. The difference to think about here is that the chat option, which is AI, is probabilistic, which means that you'll never get the same answer twice because it's a probability outcome. A search is a deterministic outcome, which means if you do a search, it will always give you the same results across that same data set. So you could go in here and you could do a search for, payroll or confidential information. And then when you run that search, it will search across all the information that that is available to that user, and then provide you the understanding of whether that is actually available to that user. So again, generally, go in, find a normal user, an average user, or a user with low permissions, run a search on key terms like confidential, payroll, the project name or invoice or general ledger, and see if that information appears in search. Because if it appears in search, then it's going to also appear in AI, because we layer AI over the top of that. So AI will use search to get current information that will then flow through any compliance policy, security policies to the data source. So if there are no compliance and security policies, then there's nothing preventing AI getting access to potentially restricted information there. So the idea is that we want to make sure we have those policies in place if we can before we go and implement AI. And the quick and easy way then to test that is to use search. Now, at the very top of the tree is the growing number of agents that are being created by users and by third parties inside the organization. So a user, as I showed you before, can create an agent and potentially reference internal data. Now, when that user leaves or their permission changes or they move from marketing to finance, is that agent being updated to accommodate that, to provide that? Are people who are using agents using that with the right permissions? Are they actually allowed to see that data, even though the agent was created by someone who does have access? Is it being published to people who should not have access? So again, think about all that. And don't forget that agents also bring in the concept of autonomy. So what that means is we can now set our agents up to automatically respond to emails, to take actions the minute a item changes in the SharePoint list, and so on. So there's an autonomy capability there. And what we find is that, somebody sets up an agent to resolve or to improve productivity, and then it's forgotten about, that user leaves, the agent's still happily running in the background, nobody's monitoring it, nobody's managing it. Is it actually still being compliant and meeting the company's requirements? Now, where do we look for the gaps here? The issue to remember is Copilot won't create, or AI won't create the gaps. It will simply exploit them probably far better or far quicker than most other tools. So, again, adding AI to an environment doesn't make it insecure, it just highlights the insecurities that have always been present. The most common one is oversharing. So most people, when they share, they just share it with everyone. That's the easy way to do it. They don't define by email address or security group, and they don't go back in after that link is no longer needed and remove it. A lot of people also don't put an expiry option, so we can create links with expiry. A month's expiry is probably good enough in most cases and should be set as the company default, perhaps. But those sort of things can end up having documents shared forever to unknown parties that a company isn't monitoring and managing. Remember that agents, as I mentioned, are like people, but they don't necessarily need MFA. They could be using some sort of legacy authentication, and they could be overprivileged. It could be a case of we're designing an agent, we're going to blow all the securities open or the permissions open to get it done to allow it to actually go and do what we want it to do. Oh, we'll get round to, doing least privileges later, and that never happens. And you end up with a agent that users who shouldn't have access can use that agent to get access to restricted information. So again, we need to make sure that we keep an eye on those agents. One of the big things is that if you look at most customers' environments, there's usually multiple copies of files. So, version 1, version 2, version 3, version 5, version 7, 2026, 2025. Again, what is the most current version? The older versions that aren't required probably should be removed, deleted, or at least moved to an archive and restricted from being accessed by users. Because remember, when a user logs in and they do use an AI, the AI is going to function with the same permissions that user has, right? So that if that user has access to multiple files of more or less the same name, so will the AI. So minimizing that is going to improve the results, reduce the chances of hallucination. And it's just best practice. You don't want to have data hanging around that is stale, that is old, that you kind of don't need. It chews up space and, again, makes AI, I suppose, more prone to giving incorrect or inappropriate answers. So if you can, make sure that there's that discipline. You can easily run a search across the environment, see how many duplicates you do have, and then look to work to eliminate those. A lot of people have, confidential, data that needs to be kept secure, but it's all by word of mouth. Oh, don't share with this bill. This is our payroll file. Make sure that you don't send this out. I think those days we can't do that in even small organizations. We have to label the data. We have to go in and put a digital marker on that data to protect it, to encrypt it, and also allow it to be detected as it moves across boundaries. So if we label the data, we can use things like DLP to prevent that data from moving outside the organization, no matter who the user is. Now, the policy to control that is something that an IT provider sets up in conjunction with the customer, is something that the IT provider can charge for and maintain. And you may need to create multiple policies. You may need to have a policy for the finance people, the accounts people. You may need to have a different policy for management. You may need a third policy for the rest of the user community inside a customer. So all of those policies need to be defined up front, need to be created, and potentially need to be managed and monitored. Are they working? Who's trying to circumvent them? And so on. So we need to understand that is a requirement really to make the data secure is to label it. So no matter where the data travels, there is a label basically on it. Now, what we see is the fact that most people are using Copilot or using AI without sharing anything. What we find is they use a prompt, they find a good prompt, but they keep it to themselves, right? So the idea here is that we've seen AI be a great productivity boost, but it tends to be used in silos. People aren't sharing the information. Now, that also applies to the admin area. there's not a lot of governance, there's not a lot of visibility to actually go back in and say, right, who's using it? Are they getting the productivity benefits that are claimed? Are they using it in the right way? Most people use AI very much like a search engine, right? Which is not the best way to use it. You don't get the most out of it. So the best or another opportunity for resellers is to help train the customer on how to optimize their use of AI with the tools that are provided in the tenant, plus any additional training or add-ons that kind of make sense. So, how do we find the gaps? That's the thing that we want to drill down into, considering that we've already maybe applied a license. Microsoft Secure Score is the simple, easy overview, one number to start basing any security evaluation discussion on. We find that in security.microsoft.com. I'm going to assume that everybody here is comfortable and knows what Secure Score is. It's a number out of 100, so percentage number that Microsoft calculates based on the security and the configuration that's been done in the tenant with the licenses that are available. Now, it's not perfect. It's not designed to be a low-level granular, is every option turned on. It's designed to be a summary largely aimed at a non-technical audience. So that is the number you can take to your customers and say, well, we're trying to get to this level and you're currently at this level, and you can track that progress over time, and you can set a base standard and then use that as something to discuss and prove to your customers that the security of their tenant is increasing as the security score will move up with the work that you do. A very good example I will give you is that if you have Microsoft 365 Business Premium, a simple and easy bump that you can get with Secure Score is to create DLP policies. And we'll look at that shortly. Those DLP policies can be put into audit mode, right, or simulation mode as it's called. That's all means that they don't enforce any restrictions, but they do allow you to report. The advantage of that is it also bumps up your secure score. So turning that sort of stuff on, even in audit mode, is going to help that number. There's also something called SharePoint Advanced Management, and in here we'll have a look at this shortly, oversharing reports. You get access to SharePoint Advanced Management as part of when a single license of Microsoft 365 Copilot is added to a tenant. Now, you can buy SharePoint Advanced Management as an add-on, but you do get the capabilities when you add at least one license into the tenant, and that's going to give you a lot of power, a lot of capability, especially where it comes to looking at oversharing. We'll have a look at where that appears in the console. We have the ability to have Entra access reviews and sign-in risk reports. Again, some of these vary on the license that you have. We have a Defender Suite add-on that we can add on to enhance that, but our sign-in risk reports, we can look at those directly in the console. We can export them to a CSV and use Excel to do analysis and searching, and we can also import those into AI, Copilot, and so on to do analysis over that sort of file data. So my advice to you is if you do have a Copilot license, you can use Researcher, the Researcher agent, and the Analyst agent to very good included capabilities with Microsoft 365 Copilot license that will give you that deep analysis and allow you to output the results, the reports in a way that customers can understand and can be as graphical kind of as you want. We've also got a capability inside Purview that we can view the content. We can look at where our sensitive information is moving, who's using it. But again, we need to make sure we've labeled it. We've defined what sensitive data is. We can't assume that the system will get it right. So the system does have some basic context over sensitive information, things with bank accounts in it, credit cards, and so on. But it's much better to define that in advance so that you know that that actually matches the data that you want to review. And of course, you want to be able to create a repeatable assessment that you can run per client if you want to do that. Now, my advice to you there is generally to use some sort of script. My preference would be PowerShell. You can create a PowerShell script, for example, that exports the required data that you want. You can then import that, or you can then ask your AI to analyze that data and create a HTML report or a Word document and so on. So you can analyze it manually if you want in something like Excel to produce reports. But my advice to you is think about taking the exports of the logs, dropping it into an AI system and asking AI to say, are there any security issues here? Please analyze this or produce a monthly report of logins to the tenant. Is there anything I need to be aware of? So you can use the AI to help you manage the AI for your customers. So again, if we pop back to the tenant here, again, this is the researcher and the analyst agent that have already been part of this. I do have a premium license in here. The other one I would suggest to you is the prompt coach. So the prompt coach is a free agent from Microsoft that will help users write better prompts to get better results out of AI. So there's no cost to add that. And you can add that simply by going to agents. You select the agents option, you'll take into the agent store, you'll see the analyst. And again, if you go in here and do a search for prompt coach, you'll see that it'll add. And all you got to do is select it. You can add it to the environment. As an administrator, you can go in the back end and push that to each customer or each user if you want to do that. Now, going back to the admin side of it, we're in the SharePoint admin console here. So you'll see that we can look at all our current sites. But because I have a Copilot license in, there are two important things to note. The first is the advanced management option here on the left-hand side. So this will appear when there is at least one paid Copilot license in the tenant. You'll see here that it gives me the capabilities to run an assessment, right? So prepare for Copilot with SharePoint Advanced Management, and it will allow you to run an assessment across all your information and produce a report that you can then talk to the customer about, or you can use to go in and start rectifying before AI is widely deployed. So you can look at inactive sites, missing sites, the sites that don't have ownership, broken permissions, and so on, all through the organization. You've got a couple of links here that will help you understand or show you the process for taking over files that have been overshared and so on. So again, this is called the SharePoint Advanced Management, and I get this capability when I add at least one license to the tenant. Now, if we go over to all features here, you'll see that you've got a number of additional capabilities here. So you can go in, look at things like block download policy. When you click on one of the options here, you'll see that it'll give you a little video and step-by-step, and also allow you to go in and create these policies. So you do need the Copilot license to be in here, but if we're looking at an adoption process, starting with one is going to give you a range of additional tools. The second one that you're going to see in your admin consoles is the Copilot button for administrators in the top right-hand corner here. Okay, so the idea is that with one license, you get the capability to open this up. And at the moment, that capability is going to be asking questions, finding sites, looking for oversharing. So you can go in here, ask the question, and get a result. Now, it doesn't take any actions as yet. So the idea is it's largely a query tool, but over time, this will probably improve and enhance its capability. Now, the other one I'll give you to find some of your risk here is to go back to our DSPM, right? So again, the way we get to DSPM is we select the solutions, get down to DSPM, and that will open this up. If we go down the bottom here, DSPM, if we go into open these up, right, you'll see here we've got an option called data risk assessments. Now, if we select that, you'll see here that I'm taken through a step-by-step process for analyzing, creating an assessment to run across all of my data. Now, there are two levels of this. The first level, which is the most basic, is going to run at a very high level. It's going to run it at the SharePoint team level, give you an idea of how many files are in there, how many files in total have been overshared. So think of it like a summary report of each SharePoint site, but it doesn't give you that breakdown. You can't drill into it further. It's an overview style report. Now, you can configure a detailed crawl, I suppose, or analysis of your data. you would need to go in here and select this option here to set up an item level scan. Now, the item level scan typically is going to require an Enter ID app, which you would have to go and configure prior, put the details in here with the appropriate permissions of this app that can then crawl through all the data. The reason for this is by default, like mailboxes, an administrator doesn't automatically have access to every user's OneDrive for Business and SharePoint environments. So you do need to go and configure that if you want to crawl across kind of all that data. All right, so there's some tools there that are provided. Some of them come when you add an additional license of Copilot, and you can buy those like the SharePoint Advanced Management standalone if you want to, and work with that without having to buy a Copilot license, but you do get it included. So I would suggest some essential AI steps to prep this up and must-dos, right? So identity is going to be the key thing. Who can get access to the environment, firstly, and then who can get access to the data? So that comes down largely to things like Enter ID, making sure your MFAs for every user, no exceptions here. Maybe the only exception you have is a break glass account, but a user who is logging in regularly should have MFA as a best practice. And then the idea is we also want to block our legacy auth. Hopefully nobody's logging in with legacy auth, but think print servers and print to fax, those sort of things. Double check all those. They still got to have legacy auth enabled. We want to make sure we've got our conditional access. This is probably the biggest security benefit of Business Premium, setting up conditional access for the environments. Now, Microsoft provides a number of pre-canned templates, best practices templates directly in conditional access, which you can go and enable. My piece of advice here is firstly, make sure you have a break glass account. Then secondly, do not enable conditional access in enforce mode. Put it into report mode or audit mode first. Verify that it works and the right people have access and you don't lock yourself out. But inside conditional access, you can, for example, force the ability for users to require re-log in if their session becomes stale. So you can maybe set it to 60 minutes. If they don't log into a session after 60 minutes or within 60 minutes, then they are forced to go through MFA and log in again for security. That's probably a good policy, but you do that again with conditional access. You want to remove any standing admin privileges. If you can implement just-in-time access. That is largely done in the Microsoft space using privileged identity management, PIM. You need that for any user that needs to escalate to a higher level of capability and then go through a additional authentication process, and then they can de-escalate those rights out. Now, PIM is available in Enter ID P2 and is also available with the Defender Suite add-on, but it is an add-on to Business Premium, but it's certainly recommended for the admin user, the global admin that you are probably logging into to manage the customer's tenant. So we want to make sure all our users are going to be normal users, and even our global admin that we're managing the tenant with, I would suggest goes through a privileged identity management escalation just-in-time access. Again, the only exception may be the break glass account that you hopefully have configured. We also want to regularly review any guest and external access. It's very easy for users to continually be inviting people into the tenant, whether it's for files, whether it's for teams. Are they all valid? So we can go through our list of users in our Enter ID. You'll probably be really surprised if you go in and do an audit of how many people have some sort of login into the tenant. Now, hopefully the permissions are controlled, but don't forget that external users without a license can be invited into a SharePoint site, into a team, into a OneDrive, into a document access. And in most cases, people forget that they don't review those and make sure those are current. So that's probably a very good starting point, at least to do an audit. So you could, again, export that detail, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then format it in a way to discuss with the customer about that. So we want to get our data in order. How can we do that? Fixing oversharing is probably the starting point. We don't want everybody to have access to something we share externally. Try and discipline the users to share by email address and also put an expiry there. You can force a standard expiry of 60, 30, 15 days as an administrator. I would recommend you do that. We want to turn on our sensitivity labels and DLP, which we get with Business Premium. I'll cover that off shortly, give you an idea of where that is. That's all defined once again by policy, right? What's the policy discussion with the customer, setting it up? The good thing is, if you can set this up in a standardized approach, then you can use things like PowerShell to rinse and repeat that over and over again. We want to restrict our Copilot to current data and current information. That may mean not everybody gets a full license initially. That may mean we need to review the permissions on SharePoint and Teams to determine what users kind of actually have access to. Cleaning up the old files, great place to start, should be done. It kind of needs to be a regular gardener of SharePoint Teams files. Otherwise, they just keep accumulating. Best practice is, again, even in security, limit the amount of data that you're keeping just because you can. And we want to start implementing baselines and documenting those so that we can then measure our KPIs across those. So if we quickly pop back into Purview, we go into our data solutions here. You'll see the first one I call out is data loss prevention, DLP. This is part of Business Premium, and you'll see you get an overview when it comes up, right? So we get a list of what it recommends we do, but this is driven by policy. So this is where you would go in and create a data loss prevention policy that firstly defines what data you want to protect. So you need to be able to identify what data. So is it financial data? Is it confidential data? Is it PII data? And you then create a policy. The second thing will be is where is that data? Is it in SharePoint? Is it in Teams? Is it in a user's OneDrive? So it's what is the data I want to protect? Where is it? The final piece of any policy is who needs access to this? Only people inside the tenant or people outside as well as inside? Who are those people outside? Are they approved? So again, we go in and define our policies there. Microsoft provides about six templated Australian DLP policies that you can click through, set all that up. My advice to you is set that up in audit or simulation mode so you can view what's going on. And the idea here is you can look then at any alerts that are generated without enforcement, and then again, make a decision based on that. And you can potentially go into the data explorers as you if you want to do that. Now, there are more advanced features in DLP above Business Premium, so just be aware that there may be, depending on what you want to achieve here, there may be additional cost if you want to go to a deeper level. The other one I'll call out here is called information protection. All right, so information protection is all about creating data labels. So these are ways to tag documents and also assign them permissions. So if we open our policies here, you'll see that you have protection policies listed here. Again, you go in and you would basically define what policies you want in there. All right, so you'll see here I've got my test, and I can create as many policies as I want. Now, once I've created a policy, I need to publish it. Publish it means who is this going to apply to? So I can create a policy that applies to everybody except the accounts team or everybody except the management and so on. So it's all defined, but the trick to doing it is to make sure you have those definitions up front. It's much easier to create the policy when you have all the definitions, you've had the discussion, you know, what data is important, where is it, who needs access. That helps you kind of create a policy. Now, you will notice here there is an auto labeling option. Unfortunately, with Business Premium, you only get the manual labeling capability, so the users can have to go in and manually label. Now, you can buy a license in various ways to get auto labeling. So auto labeling will look at the content or the location and automatically apply a label for you. You can get a auto labeling license via the Purview Suite add-on for Business Premium, or you can look at things like in the E5 SKU that will do this. So this auto labeling is a Purview add-on upgrade, and the best and cheapest way to get that is generally with the Purview Suite add-on for Business Premium that I would recommend. Now, you'll notice here that the compliance policies, DLP, and labeling do require more consultation. They will take longer to configure. It's not just a matter of turning things on and off. It's a matter of having a discussion with the customer to understand what sort of data that we want to protect and where do we want to protect it, basically from going. But the important thing is both DLP and labeling is provided with Business Premium. You go into the Purview portal, open the solutions, and select either DLP or information protection, and then you can go in and configure the policies. The other benefit is that you can also configure this and apply these and manipulate these using something like PowerShell as well. So you're going to be able to go in and use that to automate and reduce the amount of time that you need to go in and create that on a repetitive basis. All right, so the idea here is, okay, how do we package this up? Remember, the idea is we want to make it something that we can sell to our customers. We want to create a baseline. So your baseline may be you've got to have Business Premium. If you have Business Premium, we will do the standard DLP policies plus standard labels. We'll put those in audit mode, and then we'll come back 20 days later and report, let you know what's going on. And then when we turn those on, once your approval, that's kind of when you'll receive a bill for that. So the idea is again, assess first, remediate, and then you're going to provide an option to govern that as well. What happens when people try and do something and it generates an alert? Who's going to take action? Who's going to get notified? Is that something that you want to charge for as part of your option? My advice is fix the scope. Again, it's very easy for this to grow beyond we wanted this, and can we do this as well? We want to do this. We built 5 agents. Can we extend it to this? So again, scope it out. My advice would be start with just managing the chat side, and then add the agent capability on after that. Once you've again covered that off, look at the idea of, it's going to be harder, I think, initially to get this stuff in, but then once it starts, it'll be a bit of like a stone rolling down the hill. It'll happen very quickly. So again, define an endpoint and move to that endpoint to at least get the policies into audit mode. And remember, we want to roll this out. We want to test, verify, report, turn it on, and then we want to make sure our users know about the guardrails, what they can and can't do. There's nothing more frustrating for a user than suddenly coming in Monday morning and not being able to do what they were doing Friday. So make sure that you do include user training, guidance, documentation, videos, all that sort of stuff, so they are aware of the restrictions that are being placed upon them. Now, there's an opportunity to generate additional recurring revenue around the ongoing monitoring and maintenance of this, because customers are going to change their mind. They're going to move data around. They're going to add additional users. They're going to expand it to additional third-party people. So at the end of the day here, the idea is to make sure that there is not only somebody implementing, doing the uplift, there is also somebody who's going to govern it, because there will be changes, as with any policy, over time. All right. So to me, the way I always like to define things is 3 tiers as a minimum: good, better, best. All right. So again, start with the essentials, harden your identity, fix the oversharing so it's ready for AI. Then we want to look at securing it. So that's including labels and DLP and some basic Copilot controls. Now, DLP, basic DLP and labeling is available in Business Premium. If you want automatic labeling or more advanced capabilities of DLP, you probably need to upgrade the license. But the basic starting point for DLP is included with a Business Premium along with basic labeling. Then as a managed service, it's okay, do you want this reviewed monthly? Do you want to know who's trying to circumvent DLP? Do you want to know how many sensitive documents are being sent out or potentially being sent out and denied the organization? Because that may indicate a repeated pattern. It may indicate an insider risk. So again, there's an opportunity to monitor and report on that using the Microsoft tools that are available. And we want to anchor our price to risk, right? What is the risk that I'm mitigating? Think of it like an insurance policy, not a maintenance capability, right? We want to mitigate the risk. This is the cost to minimize the risk and implement these controls. And then there's a price to monitor, manage, and maintain that. So you can roll that into a monthly capability there, right? So again, lots and lots of capabilities inside the Microsoft environment that you can work with there. All right. So to finish it off, I would suggest that remember it's a journey. It's not just turning stuff on and off. Start with a readiness for every client. You can do that immediately. You're not changing anything. Schedule a quarterly posture review, which you're probably already doing, but include the compliance conversation. Layer in the advanced purview and defender controls if you want to do that. So you can add the purview add-on to give you auto labeling. You can add the Defender Suite add-on to get Enter ID, P2, and PIM, to escalate rights on demand. You can tile this to improving the secure score, which is the easy metric for the customer to understand, right? They'll be able to see the number improving as you do the work. You can use that as the benchmark to help them understand without getting too complex and too technical. And we can use incidents and so on to have these conversations, right? So I think I've got one more slide, Andrew. So again, the idea is we want to make sure we do our oversharing, do that on a regular basis, because that's going to keep coming. Rerun our assessment, and once we can automate this with the tools that are there, it can be set up to happen regularly, and we just need to review it. Report your progress, right? Let the customer know the value they're getting in the time you're investing to help keep them secure and allow them to get on with their job of running their business, and that they are protected and they're following the guidelines recommended as best practices, right? In essence, I think that if we focus on making our customers more secure, they will be more comfortable using AI, which will then give you an opportunity to invest and potentially sell solutions around AI to the customer, as well as an ongoing security and compliance conversation. Now, these slides will be made available afterwards. I've got a number of resources there from Microsoft that I would certainly recommend you go and review in detail. There are plenty of out there, and I'm sure that the Managed Protect team would love you to make contact with them and ask any deeper questions. But I think I'm on time, so I will see if Andrew has any curly Q&A questions.
Definitely. And, I think that's, Rob, I think you've done an excellent job of going through all the way from the meat and potatoes of what you have to do with identity before you even start, how you manage your data, and the preparation process. I love that you put it in a position of a product rather than a project too, because that's how our MSPs will thrive and grow. Um, we've got one question on there, the Q&A. Robert, can you see that?
If it's the one
From
about, I'd like to
Ludwig?
clarify the license requirements for Microsoft Purview DLP. Right, for basic DLP features, he's asking, do users need a Microsoft 365 Business Premium license, right? In essence, the way to think about Microsoft licensing is always a user who benefits from the features of a product requires a license. So if you want a user to be subject to DLP in regards to the data they send somewhere, they need a license of DLP assigned to them, which means that DLP is part of Business Premium, which means that every user who has Business Premium has a DLP license and they're covered. If they have Business Standard or Business Basic, they don't have a DLP license, and therefore DLP would not be enforced on them because they haven't been assigned a license. So again,
No.
a user who wants to use the functionality of something Microsoft provides needs a license for that functionality in a nutshell.
In the context of what we discussed, you could have, once you have one license of Business Premium, you have access to the reporting and the actual functionality in the portal, but it only applies then to the users who actually, other users who have Business Premium.
Yeah, I think also too the thing to think about is that if you're trying to help the customer understand the value of it, you could either take the examples from an existing customer who has Business Premium, or as you said, put a license in there for a
Mm.
month, which you can do, cancel it out, and really, if they don't see the value, then it's going to be really hard to sell them anything else. So if you want to do that, yes, but to me, I would, if you can, have a customer who is using it and you can show them anonymized reports to get a better feel for it. So I think,
Yeah.
again, the starting point would be do it to yourself, right? Do the DLP to yourself and then create a demo so that you can show the customer, say, look, I'm going to try and send this to you. It's got a credit card in it. Watch it get blocked. That's kind of what you're getting.
Yep, yep. And then once you basically apply a single license, that gives them a taste of this is what it can do and what it could do. And I suppose it's really common within Microsoft, isn't it? Add a single license of Business Premium, add a single license of Purview, and then Agent 365. So you've got those levels of visibility, and then you've got levels of access and management.
Well, I think the idea here is, as with anything these days, you can go to a supermarket and you've got infinite choice for strawberry jam, toothpaste, water, whatever. Again, we've got that in the Microsoft licensing. In general, it's better that everybody uses the same brand. That makes it easier on you. The costs are more thing. But if you want to, yes, you can vary it up and down. F licenses, E3 licenses, E5, add this, add on.
Mm.
That's the flexibility. But my advice would be is, okay,
Keep it simple.
what makes sense to you before you go just applying additional licenses willy nilly.
Agree. Agree. Robert, thank you very much for coming on today. I really wish within webinars people could clap somehow at the end just to say that they really
Oh,
appreciate it, because I very much appreciate you being here, and thank you for presenting
excellent. No worries.
and
Happy to do
sharing.
it.
Okay. Thank you. As Rob mentioned, the slides will be shared. Please, as will the recording. Please reach out to us if you have any questions whatsoever. We're here to help. We genuinely want to partner with you and help you through this journey. And we're going through the journey as well. So let's talk. Have a great afternoon, and thank you for attending.